Right, so in less than 7 days' time, Chelsea kick off the first pre-season game of the 24-25 season, and it kicks off with Wrexham at 3 a.m. on the 25th of July. This is going to be a big one. We played them last pre-season as well. You know, there's a huge following of Wrexham in the United States after a fantastic show that they created all about that football club, and obviously the celebrity background behind it. It's very exciting. This is going to be particularly good because obviously all of you guys and girls that are watching in the United States, or actually, and I know a lot of you are in Australia as well, this will be at a more reasonable time for you. You can actually watch Chelsea, not have to wake up in the middle of the night. If you do want to see my reaction to that and all of the pre-season games, make sure you subscribe to the channel because we are going to be doing live streams. We're going to be reacting to each of the games, talking about them afterwards, talking about the tactical setup, talking about this new manager, see how he's playing, look at the new signings that we get, look at some of the players that are returning from loan. It's all going to kick off, so make sure you are subscribed because it's going to be absolutely brilliant. After the Wrexham game, we then have Celtic on the 27th of July. On the 1st of August, it's Club America. On the 3rd of August, it's Man City. 7th of August, Real Madrid. And then the 11th of August is Inter Milan. So mark all of those down in your diary because we are obviously will be talking about them on the channel as I say, but they are the matches that we've got to look forward to. So what I thought I could do in this video is talk about some players that I'm really excited about watching this pre-season. There are quite a few narratives behind some players that are returning, some players that are new and I'm really excited to have a look at, and some players that we've seen before that are coming back off injuries that are going to be making their big announcement, their big pledge to try and play in the Chelsea first team for the first game of the season, which is that Man City match at home. It's going to be a massive start to the season. But without further ado, why don't we get into the first player, which I want to talk about, which is Andre Santos. Now, remember this guy, right? Last season, it was a bit of a tough one, wasn't it? He started off playing at Forest. Now, Forest were under Steve Cooper at the time, who I think is a very good manager. And I think he's going to do very good things in the Premier League now. Obviously, he has a new club. I'm really excited to see how he gets on. But we thought he'd be playing Andre Santos quite a lot more than he was, and he didn't. So what that meant was that we recalled him in January. We decided to send him on another loan. Obviously, where he ended up was Strasbourg, another Bluecoat-owned, another Chelsea-owned football club. He ends up going there, and really he sort of tore it up, let's be honest. And he was under the tutelage of Patrick Vieira, the former manager now of Strasbourg. And I have to say, I can't think of a better tutor for a player like Andre Santos than Patrick Vieira, to be honest with you. Like, you know, you think of his background, CDM, quality player, arguably is up there in sort of Premier League all-time greats, and I think he would have learnt a lot, Andre Santos, under his tutelage. And I think you can tell that. I mean, you look at the stats that he's got, 7.3 balls recovered on average per game, which is amazing. 11 kilometres run as well, so he was all over the pitch. 11 kilometres is above average in terms of running distance for a player in the sort of the top leagues, and also 75 touches per match as well, which I thought was very, very good. He scored some winning goals. Like, he looked real quality. So I think what I'm most excited about is to see how he fits into this setup and how he fits into the squad overall. I've been looking at it, and I think, obviously, we've got a lot of midfielders, haven't we? We've got, probably 7 or 8 at the moment on the books that could be in and around the first team. I do anticipate some of those to go out on loan or potentially be sold. Casadei is one that they've discussed with other deals. Obviously, there's a lot of interest around him. I could see him either going on loan or potentially being sold. We've just heard rumours about Ugochukwu as well going on loan, and I could definitely see him departing the club. But what that means is that there may potentially be a spot that otherwise would have been filled by one of those other players for Santos, and I see him higher at the moment in the pecking order than those other 2 players that I mentioned. So what pre-season will be for him is a bit of an audition almost to say, are you up to the Chelsea standard, up to the Chelsea quality, and can you play at that level? Now, I thought Leslie Ugochukwu absolutely impressed at this level, to be honest with you. I thought he looked really decent. He kept the ball very well, very strong player. He obviously got injured as well, so I think it's time for him to go and get some proper game time elsewhere. And Casadei, again, you know, recalled from Malone at Leicester. Maresca knows him really well. and isn't necessarily, it seems, really clinging on to keep him around, because there are a lot of rumours about him leaving the club. So, and Maresca will know him better than anyone, really, with his time at Leicester. And I think it's really harsh, actually, that we did recall him, because I think it was about 28 minutes that he got total when he returned back to Chelsea. And let's be honest, that's just not good enough for a young player, and it definitely isn't going to help his development. So with that being said, like I say, I think this is a real opportunity for Andre Santos to come in and actually really make a difference in the first team. I expect him not to be one of the lone pivot players. So the way that Maresca is going to play, he's going to play with a deeper midfielder, and then obviously you're going to have two number 8s that are bombing on and playing. When I look at those number 8s, I see on the left-hand side probably Carney, and I probably see Gallagher if he stays, and then obviously the new signing Dewsbury Hall, who we all expect really to be starting on that left-hand side. I'd love to see that battle between him and Carney, and I'm really excited, and I hope that we don't get any bids for Carney, because obviously what it seems like there's a bid going in at the moment, £40 million of release clause apparently. Not, I shouldn't say a bid, but we know that there's a release clause, which is very low, way lower than I expected. And on the other side, you've got Caicedo, who's going to be probably more advanced than he was under Pochettino. And I think the backup to him is Andre Santos. And I think will be more advanced than he was previously. We know that he can score goals. We know that he can get up and down the pitch. So I really do like the fact that he isn't playing in a double pivot. And I actually think that benefits him in terms of this system. So again, when you're watching him in pre-season, look at where he starts in the pitch and look at where he is in terms of that midfield 5. If he starts deeper, I think that would be very unusual. And I don't expect that. But if he plays in that sort of more advanced role, he could be getting goals and sort of getting assists, and that would be really, really exciting for a player of his age. And I think after the absolute debacle, the horrendous news that we got about Enzo Fernandez and his, racist and transphobic comments which were just despicable. And, my perspective on this at the moment now is I'm really glad that he apologised. The club absolutely need to do the right thing now and punish him properly, because it's just ridiculous. I feel so sorry for all the players that are in the squad right now that did unfollow him on social media, but are going to be really hurting. And I hope that Enzo does go up to them and apologise, in person, and do it man to man, because what he's put those guys through, I think is ridiculous. So there's a lot of making up to do for him. Obviously, there's some FA action as well. There's a potential ban that he could be serving in the Premier League as well. It seems like that could be up to 6 matches. It could be even up to 12. Could be out until November time, which could be, really bad for him, catastrophic for him. So he's really let himself down. But what I think that means then for some of these other players that are still around the squad is that they're going to get more of an opportunity now. I very much anticipate Lavia to be in the base of the midfield if Enzo isn't starting there. But as I say, Santos might be the sort of the third choice, especially if Leslie Igochukwu isn't at the club. So what I wanted to do is look at what some people have said about Andre Santos and also try and compare him to other players. Now, I looked at what this Brazilian journalist said about him, and, there's quite a lot of feedback on this guy, and a lot of people were saying, he is the next big wonder kid that we've got to look out for. I've just had a look at this one Brazilian journalist in particular. He said that Andre Santos is way above average. The kid is off the charts. What a little monster. And I think that really does paint a picture here. The Brazilian journalists, Brazilian fans, people that were watching him at under 20 level, they all understand that this guy is a top talent. And he isn't just one of those players that's going to make up the numbers. He was absolutely smashing it for Brazil at all the age groups. And I think he was captain for that side, under 20 side as well. And so we are really expecting big things from him. And I think he's one of the first wonder kids off the conveyor belt of the Blueco sort of wonder kid sort of transfer strategy, I should say. And I do think he'll end up being involved in the squad. So he's definitely one to look at. Now, let's compare him to Romeo Lavia. What I wanted to do is obviously, there's a lot of hype about Romeo Lavia, isn't there? And I think they are slightly different players, and that's why I thought it was quite interesting to look at them. So what I did is I took the numbers from Strasbourg that Andre Santos was playing at the tail end of last season, and I looked at the numbers for Lavia at Southampton. Now, obviously, that was the season before last when he was at the bottom of the Premier League. So we're not necessarily comparing, apples to apples here. It's not necessarily the fairest comparison, because Andre Santos playing in a slightly less reputable league. Lavia was playing in a more dysfunctional team, right at the bottom of the table. So it's not massively fair to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The data does show Andre Santos' potential. I think, looking at this chart, you can see that he's got better passing accuracy. He does more through balls per game, more key passes per game, more scoring contributions, more tackles, and more progressive passes than Remi Lavia. And Remi Lavia is this one that we expect to be sort of lighting it up really for us at the base of midfield. So it really does show how good this guy can potentially be. And so, like I say, I think pre-season is key for him. I'm really, really excited to watch him, and I think you all will be too. So, I suppose to sum it up, this will be a tale of whether the Bluco Wonder Kid experiment actually proves fertile for the Chelsea first team. And I think he's, as I say, one of the first off the conveyor belt. So very, very excited to watch him. The next one that I want to talk about is Christopher Nkunku. And I think for me, this is a tale of injuries. And I think if you're looking at it now, maybe it's the tale of Pochettino's biggest weakness, in that he was bringing players back perhaps too early and potentially running them too close to games, using sort of fitness as a sort of precursor to a match preparation, which is very unusual in sort of like football training circles, you have to say. What we've heard is that Mauricio Pochettino was running the guys quite hard in the day before matches, and that did result obviously in fatigue, and it seems like it did really contribute to the injury crisis that we had last season, which is really unexpected and very unusual with the sheer level of injuries that we had, really. So let's look at Christopher Nkunku's injury record. He missed 39 games last season for Chelsea, and that was across 3 separate injuries. So the real question that we have for him now is, how is he going to be able to integrate back into the squad, and is he going to be able to be fully fit and 100% himself? You know what it's like. We've seen players, up and down the sort of the history books of Chelsea, and some players have been able to come back from serious injuries and some haven't. You look at Fernando Torres. Liverpool sold him knowing that he had a hamstring problem and knowing that that potentially could be a career-ending injury. And we bought him for an exorbitant amount of money, and he never really was the same that he was, in that level, in that Liverpool era when he was sort of tearing it up. There was something always hampering him. And then you compare that to someone like Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Ruben Loftus-Cheek had such a bad injury. He lost a lot of muscle mass in his lower calf, upper calf, I should say. Really serious injury. Didn't quite come back straight away, but then look at what he's doing at AC Milan now, and I'd love to have Ruben back in the squad, and best of luck to him. He was always a very good player for us, and I do think we sold him a little bit too early. But that's what I'm saying. I would rather see Christopher Nkunku come back and be involved straight away, and I think he's had enough time off now to get right back into it. Now the question after that is, where does he fit into the team? We're obviously looking at him, and we saw him play last season on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side as a false 9. He also played as a 10. And his versatility is definitely an advantage to us, and I think that will really serve us well, having a player of his quality, if he is fully fit, to play in and around those sort of 4 positions, especially because there are players that are underperforming on the left-hand side at the moment. Number 10 is unclear, and whether that's even going to be a position in the Enzo Maresca system. It will basically be one of the free 8s if he's going to play there. The right-hand side is a little bit, stacked, I should say, at the moment. Cole Palmer could play on the right. Obviously, Noni Madueke had a very good tail end of the season and really does look like, he's recovered and playing very well over the summer. Looks ready to go in terms of the training footage that I've seen. And then, the forwards, we've obviously got this new guy from Barcelona, Mark Gue, and we also have Nicholas Jackson. So that's also seeming fairly busy, and there might be potential new striker options coming in. So I'm really interested to see where Christopher Nkunku plays in pre-season. I'm going to be watching him like a hawk. My guess is that he'll play on the left-hand side, but that's very difficult to confirm because Raheem Sterling is still there, and I think Raheem Sterling will actually play quite a lot under Enzo Maresca. I just get that vibe. Obviously, you've got my man, Mudryk, that's still there and still involved in the team. He's definitely not going to be loaned out. He's definitely going to be in and around the squad this season. And by all accounts, he'll be playing, quite a lot of football as well. So it's going to be, I just don't know where Christopher Nkunku fits in, but I know one thing is that he will be fit in somewhere. And the fact that we're still looking at wingers definitely indicates something. It indicates that one of those players has got to go. Out of the four sort of players that I mentioned, Cole Palmer obviously isn't going anywhere. The latest briefings is that Noni Madueke isn't going anywhere either. So really, the only one that I can see that makes any sense is Raheem Sterling. I just can't see them offloading Mudryk with the amount of money that they paid for him. He's actually on a relatively low wage, and so I just can't see them offloading him. So the position for Christopher Nkunku is fascinating. Now remember, at the tail end of last season, he was absolutely immense. He scored that no-look goal in the Brighton game where we won 2-1 at the second last game of the season. He obviously had that excellent goal as well in the Liverpool match, and he also scored a good goal, didn't he, against Wolves. So we know he's got an eye for goal. And I was looking at his stats as well. His stats are absolutely unbelievable. Like, I think it's 165 total matches in his career. I think he had 65 goals and 56 assists, something like that. It's an amazing amount of goal contributions. I mean, basically one in every 2 games pretty much in his career. Now, bear in mind, he was also playing a lot of those games at right back for PSG. His versatility, I was looking at transfer marks, right? His versatility is almost all over the pitch. The only positions he hasn't actually played is left back and centre back. I think he's played pretty much every other position on the pitch. So it's fascinating to see this guy, and I'm really excited to see where he ends up this pre-season. Now, before I get into the next player, which is going to be Sanchez in goal for us, I do want to quickly say, if you're interested in fantasy football, which I love, by the way, the game's just been released. It's very, very exciting. I wanted to create a league for all of us watching on this channel and create a bit of a community in terms of fantasy football. I know loads of you play it, and so if you do want to join the league, there's a link in the description. It will take you directly to the league. It will sign you up automatically, so get involved. The winner at the end of the season, I do want to give you guys a prize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer basically like an Aveste t-shirt for free sent to you. You just need to be in the UK or the US to be able to get for me to ship it to you. But even if you're not in those locations, join the league and I'll do my best to try and get it over to you if I can based on your location. But I think that could be really exciting, and definitely join that. Hit the link in the description below for that. Now let's get on to Sanchez. Now, everything we're hearing about Sanchez in goal for us is that he will be the first choice for this preseason. Enzo Maresca is seeming to favour this guy in terms of his ball playing and his ball progression. Now, the story for me with Sanchez is that I don't know if he's going to end preseason as the #1 goalkeeper. He's definitely going to start it, or it seems that he's going to start it. I just don't have the confidence in him at this point. Now, I really hope that he does prove me wrong. The difficulty is that you've had Petrovic, who has basically played admirably, came in, looked very solid, didn't really put a foot wrong. Definitely wasn't the most elegant passer of the ball, but certainly didn't make any sort of glaring mistakes. I think there was one where he parred the ball into the back of the net, but I really can't blame him for anything. So it's weird that we are now reverting back to Sanchez, who made the mistake, gave the ball to Declan Rice, who then slapped it in again, when we played Arsenal. So I think this, for me, is going to be whether we look at him and potentially sell him and invest in the market. I can't see us selling Petrovic now. So I do think if we're going to buy another goalkeeper, it makes sense for us to look at Sanchez and selling him. So it's going to be a really, really interesting one. He can't let himself down in any of these preseason. If there's any mistakes, I think it could be curtains for him. And I think, as I say, Petrovic isn't, I don't think is going anywhere. Kepa is one, again, that will definitely be sold. He's not going to be involved in the squad at all. In fact, he's not even training with the first team right now. He's training with the kids. So he'll definitely be gone. And so the question is, was this Brighton player that they didn't really fancy, is he good enough to play, at what we want to be Champions League level? And I personally don't know if he is, but definitely let me know in the comments, who would you want as goalkeeper at the start of the season? Would you fancy Sanchez or Petrovic, or would you be open to signing another goalkeeper? And if you are interested in signing another goalkeeper, who would it be? Obviously, Joey and I discussed Mamashvili last summer, the Georgian goalkeeper, who, by the way, just won the goalkeeper of the tournament, was in the team of the tournament for Euro 2024. I really like this guy. Think he looks really good. Don't think he'll be on a load of money, although he has got a very serious agent, and that's a relatively new thing. So maybe that will push up things, and maybe that's why we haven't made a move. But I think he looks like a really, really good option, and definitely tore it up in the Euros. So maybe there will be a twist in the tail at the tail end of this transfer window. If you're asking me my gut opinion, I do think Sanchez will do enough just to make that starting position his own, based on the pre-season matches. So I don't anticipate us making any transfers. But yeah, really interested to see what you think. Let me know in the comments. The next player that I want to talk about is really a position, but I want to talk about one player in particular. But let's get on to centre-backs. Now, the player that I want to talk about in particular is Wesley Fofana. What I'm really excited about now is to get this guy back from having such a awful injury, out for over a year. When he came in, he really did look like a sort of a superstar player. Obviously came in from Leicester. Obviously there's that Enzo Maresca connection. And he's coming in at this point now where he's still a young player, but because he's been involved and played in the Premier League for a while now, you expect him to sort of take on that leadership role. Now, I also looked at the wages that he's on. He's on 200 grand a week, which again, it's the era before the sort of the wage capping, the Blue Coast sensible transfer situation was going on. So he's really got a lot of pressure that he needs to perform at that sort of like starting 11 level. And we all know that he's good enough to do that. But there's a lot of pressure in this position, isn't there? There are currently 6 centre-backs playing for 2 positions. Trevor is still there. Disasi, Badiashile, Wesley, Colwell, Tosin is the last one. So, obviously the new signing. So, we've got a lot of players that can play in those positions. And I think what I wanted to look at in terms of Wesley Fofana is whether he can recapture that form and come back from the injuries like Christopher Nkunku and be involved in the first team. We know how good he is. So what I wanted to do very quickly is go through some of the other defenders and compare them to him. So looked at Tosin and his time at Fulham and then compared the other centre-backs. Now, what's interesting is you can't even get data for Wesley Fofana that I think is comparable and fair because he was out for a year. So I've omitted Wesley out of this, but I wanted to have a look at how good Tosin was and how good he was in comparison to Levi, Badiashile and Disasi. Because what I think is interesting, isn't it? Obviously, Trevor, I haven't compared him because I just anticipate him to be out the door. I don't want him to be out the door, but I do anticipate him to be gone. For me, I was looking at the other players then, and I'm looking at their strengths, and it's fascinating actually. So for Tosin, he's got advantages on scoring more goals than the others. He's got better dribbling stats, better clearances. He's got more interceptions. He's got more clean sheets. Obviously, he was playing for Fulham, different team. They should have been performing worse than us because they finished lower, and yet he's got better stats per game for clean sheets. It's very interesting. And then long passing. So all in all, looking at the data, he seems to be the best out of these guys. Now, let's also compare the other guys. So for Levi Colwell, he is better at duels, he's better at tackles, he's better at interceptions, and he's got the lowest amount of goals conceded. So not clean sheets, but actually goals conceded per game. Now, obviously, we saw him at the left-back position. Can't see him playing there this season with the inverted left-back. I do think that the left-back will invert. And so I can't see him playing there. But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, comparing these two are probably the starters. And that's why it's interesting to talk about Wesley. Because Wesley's got to beat those two guys and perform in pre-season and show why he should be starting. And he's got a lot of pressure on him. So it'll be very interesting. In terms of the other two, Axel Disasi is by far the weakest in terms of these stats. And you'll see it here. There's a lot of red here. Red indicates that he's not good compared to the other players. The only one that he really excels in is aerial. And you see this with his physicality, that he's got that in the locker. It's an interesting one with him because did we need to even sign him? You know, I think you look back on that previous summer where he did come in. Trevor was out for 6 months, 5 months maybe. So the right centre-back position was open. Now, Thiago Silva was obviously there. He was playing out of his skin. He looks immense, and he's going to be a big miss, isn't he? But there wasn't a Tosin, and so really, we did need to strengthen in that area. But I just think maybe we jumped the gun slightly because now there's a problem. Like, this guy's still there. He's 26 now, I think. And I don't see how he gets a game. I really don't. I see Wesley above him. I see Tosin above him. And those are the two right centre-back options. Now, Badiashile was also interesting. We've got to look at him as well. He's got better stats for the amount of touches that he has, the passing accuracy, and forward passing as well. and he's very good at recovery. So I think Badiashile is definitely one of those ones that's more of a ball-playing defender from the stats that we can see here. And we saw that in the games. He started off slowly, didn't he? Ended up playing very, very well. And I think for me, if I'm choosing it now, I do favour Levi Colwill slightly. But Badiashile and Levi Colwill, they're similar. You know, there's not a lot in it between those two, and they're going to really fight it out. And in terms of that left centre-back position, I do think it is between those two. There isn't the sort of the three to compare it against, really. I see Tosin being a right-sided player. I see Wesley being a right-sided player, and Disasi being a right-sided player. And then probably Trev as well. But, you know, Trev, I think it's very unlikely that he starts the season with us, which I think would be a massive shame. So centre-backs going to be so interesting. How long has it been really since we've had a summer where we don't know who the starting pairing is going to be? Even one of them, we don't really know one of them at the moment. So I'm going to be watching that with a lot of attention. Now, the last player that I want to talk about is Marc Guiu, the guy that has come in from Barcelona. I think it was €5 million. Not a lot of money at all, really, for a player of his quality and his potential. He's a very young guy. He's 6'2", looks strong, looks, you know, really strong, to be honest with you. The pictures that I've seen of him, I was actually surprised about how well sort of built he was. I thought he was going to come in and make up the numbers potentially for the under-21s. Everything that we've been told is that he's in the first team squad. Now, the thing that we've got to look at with him is whether he is that level, and whether he's a Europa Conference League, signing to get some legs and some run out there. But as we've said, there are other players that can play that position. Christopher Nkunku is currently listed as a striker on the Chelsea website. Obviously, Nicholas Jackson had a very good first season coming into the Premier League for the first time, and he should be absolutely proud of himself for that. And I do think more people are very favourable now towards Nicholas Jackson. And so this guy's going to come in, and there's competition at the moment for another signing. So we're even looking at other players in the market in the striker position. And obviously the latest from that is that they're looking and saying, they're looking for the right opportunity. We're looking at what other people are doing in the market, and we're going to jump on it. So it's all based on timing. And I think what it will also matter is, the Atletico Madrid striker, Omar, who we had a look at, they want €50 million for him, and it seems now that he's the real target. But it really does sort of make a difference now if Atletico are going to bid for Conor Gallagher and whether Conor Gallagher wants to go there, because then there'll be a Conor Gallagher transfer, and then this striker will come over to us. So, pay attention to that. That's another one to look out for in terms of the end of the transfer window. But this guy, Marc Guiu, really, really excited to see him play. Very excited to see what level he is. So definitely going to be paying attention to him in the striker position. Now, there is one last player that I do want to shout out, just a little bonus player that, I say, because I've said 5, but I want to just mention one more. But Tyreek George is a player that I'm really, really excited about. Left winger, he got 14 goals and 10 assists for Chelsea under-21s last season, and he was on the Premier League bench for the men's team, the first team, 3 times. I'm so interested to see what happens with him in pre-season, whether he does get any game time. I'm very interested to see if he is in and around the squad, whether he ends up going on loan or whether he ends up playing the majority of the games for the under-21s again. But what a talent we've got with this guy. And I suppose the summary of this is he going to be the sort of like next academy product that actually ends up in the first team? Or is it going to be constantly, now with Blueco, going to be one of these, and Clear Lake, is it going to be a conveyor belt of players that come into the first team squad-ish and then they're sold? Could Alfie Gilchrist be one of those players that is sold? Who's the next academy player? Obviously, we've seen Ian Matson go this summer, which is, again, gutting. He'll tear out for Villa. And again, for fantasy football, I think he's a very reasonably priced player at the moment, and definitely one you should be looking at for your squads. He's only $5 million. So, yeah, I think, for that, I'm very interested to see how these players come in and play in the first team. I think Tyreek George is going to make a massive contribution. So those are my players. Let me know in the comments below who you're really interested to watch this summer. It's going to be so exciting. Remember, if you aren't subscribed, there's going to be loads of content over the preseason, so make sure you are subscribed. And one last thing I'll leave you with. If you are looking at this new kit, which, yes, there is a new kit out. I'll put it on screen now. It looks very pretty, doesn't it? It's very controversial. I did a poll on my Instagram. A lot of you hated it. I'd say the majority of you hated it, which is interesting. So maybe it's a grower, I am of the opinion right now that I like it. I've purchased it. I can't wait for it to arrive. I will wear it on the next video and I will let you know my honest thoughts. I've got the sort of like the premium version because I find those sort of last better. So I'm excited to see that. But if you do want to pick up any of the kits for yourself, there is a link in the description that will take you to the Chelsea Mega Store. It's my personal link, so you'll be supporting me if you do buy anything from there. And you get 10% off when you use that link. So if you are going to purchase anything for Chelsea, the kits for this season, which they are looking all right. The away kit looks really good. The third kit, not so much. But if you do want to pick those up, use my link in the description below. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.